everyone, Lady Sapphire here. So, today we're going to have some fun. I'm piggybacking a little bit off of Tuesday's episode because I want to get into polyamory and polygamy, explain what they are, what's the difference between the two, and quickly dismiss a lot of misunderstandings that somehow they are related to the group sex kinks and that kind of stuff when they're not. So, welcome to my channel, and like and subscribe if you'd like to support me. And otherwise, I release videos Tuesdays and Thursdays around 10 o'clock, and here we go. So, polyamory and polygamy, aren't they the same thing? No. This is a huge misconception people have that they're the same thing. Polygamy is much more like what we consider the harem setup, where it's heterosexual relationships between one person and multiple husbands or wives. And they typically have only one-on-one sex with each individual partner. There is no group sex, and polygamy is usually more based upon religious practices, much like the Mormons or the LDS now, or the Muslims, or many of the Oriental cultures continue with this pattern because it's something that was part of their history with the harems. It was very common for someone to show their wealth by showing how many wives they could support, which has moved into today's world. Now, on a whole, polygamy can be a very successful thing. Picture yourself as a single mother or as a mother with a husband working all day, and the joys of having a secondary person there on a constant basis to be another mother or to be another father that would help with the life things, daily life tasks. There are definitely bonuses to this. Downside is that you can end up with some jealousy issues or some affirmation issues. So I'll get some warnings and tips in at the end of this when I'm done explaining, but be cautious of these things. Now, polyamory is a whole different dynamic. Polyamory is actually more likely to be more sexually fluid couples. So it could be women bringing in more women, it could be men bringing in more men, it could be women bringing in women, or a couple of the women and man bringing in more women or men. The difference between polygamy and polyamory is polyamory sometimes does involve the group sex. Sometimes. I'm not going to say that on a whole. It totally comes down to personal preferences with the people. But typically, there is a little bit more fluidity to the sexuality between everyone involved. Now, the similarities between the two are that you do have similar issues, similar fears, and similar dangers. By which I mean, when it comes down to issues, you can still run into jealousy issues, you can still run into affirmation issues, because are you getting what you need out of each individual partner? And that's where things can get tricky. And then if you're in a polygamous situation where you have one person trying to please many, are they going to be able to meet the needs and standards of each one of their partners? And this is where you have to start getting creative, because sometimes, especially when you're dealing with one man and multiple women, that poor guy might not be able to keep up. I don't care how Don Juan he is. He might not be able to keep up with all of their needs. So being creative in means of toys and different ways of playing and doing things like anticipation play, things like that are great ways to affirm the situations without having to drain the libido of the poor single person trying to please them all. Now, with polyamorous relationships, this doesn't always become such a prevalent issue because everyone's kind of loving everyone. It's not just one person trying to love them all while they love each other in a more familial way. In polyamorous situations, They're much more, everyone's loving everyone in a much more family unit dynamic where you can have the women loving with the women and the men loving with the men, or maybe not men with men, but if it's just one man with two women, the women might still love up on each other, where in a polygamous relationship that wouldn't happen, because usually with polygamous relationships there are religious backgrounds in play that tend to lead people away from the group sex and the lesbian and gay situations, and those kind of just general situations don't really come up as much with polygamy because of the religious background, where polyamory is much more free liberation. It's still about love. It's still about, no matter what, it's a lifestyle. It's not a kink. People think it's a kink like the group sex kinks, but it's not. It is a lifestyle choice. It is someone who literally has the ability to be in love with multiple people. And this might sound foreign to you if you're someone who was raised in the ethical moral system of one man, one woman, or one partner, whether you believe in homosexuality or not. It means of the one partner for each person, and that's fine. If that's what you believe, I don't want to step on your toes and say that's wrong. No, that's fine. And that's a safer way to live life. However, even in solo relationships or couples, you can still have cheating, which can lead to disease. Like, the risks don't change. Sex is sex. But when you're talking about someone who's polyamorous, they don't believe that moral idea that only one person can love one person. It doesn't work that way for them. In their brains, they can literally love multiple people just as fully, but in a different way. And we see this in friendships and in other kinds of relationships where, you're on the schoolyard, or you're in your adult life now with all of your best friends, and you have your best girlfriends, and they're all best friends for different reasons and in completely different ways. It's very similar to how a polyamorous would consider their love for their people. It's, I truly and deeply love each one of them for very different reasons. This one is strong and independent. This one is shy and soft. This one is a little bit in between. This one is your typical, little bit wacky situation personality. Everyone kind of falls for their types, and everyone can fall in love in different ways. But when we're talking about polyamorous or polygamous, well, polygamous is a little bit different, but polyamorous specifically, they can fall in love with multiple people and still be as in love with the previous partner as they are with the new partner. It doesn't change. That doesn't shift. They still love each one. I mean, not to say they're not going to fall out of love from time to time and break up with people from time to time, as would be the case for any relationship, not just polyamorous relationships. But the reason I kind of went on that is with polygamous relationships, it's much more typical that the one person can fall in love with many, where the many are happy to fall in love with one. So it can get a little bit different in dynamics, which is why I really want to make sure I explained both in separate ways and then explained how they're all brought together. Now, quick on my warnings and tips. If you are in one of these relationships and you want to make the best out of one of these relationships, or if you're just one of these kinds of people who want to make the best out of their lives, knowing this is the kind of relationship you're going to look for in life, here are my quick tips. So, first and foremost, reaffirmation is the most important thing. So, everyone thinks it's all about the sex. It's not. Sex is great, but in reality, once we all grown up, we can kind of deal with our own needs to an extent, but we can't deal with our own emotional needs. So when we're talking about affirmation, I'm discussing purely emotional and spiritual affirmation. So yes, I mean, you should still have sex with your partners, but there should be much more dedication to reminding each one that you love them, why you love them, and it doesn't have to be in big ways. I'm not saying you gotta like throw a parade for each one once a week. No, it can be very simple things on the daily. So you can do very simple things like brush their arm, rub their back, pat their head, whatever their thing is, because everyone has their own thing. Like everyone has that one thing where it's like, if you do this, I will purr like a cat. Everyone has that one thing. So it's your job, especially if you're in a polygamous situation where it's your job to take care of all of your partners, then you really need to know that person, like those people enough to know, how can I reaffirm them every time they need it? And how do I know when they need it? So they will have signs. Like, I mean, every person has their little things where it's like they might go quiet, or they might get grumpy, or they might get irrational or irritable because they're not getting that proper reaffirmation they need in a regular enough capacity to suit their needs. So don't sit there. If you are the polygamous leader of your group of partners, make sure you never make them feel less than because you're too tired to give their head a quick tap or give their back a quick rub. It's really that simple to make people know that you love them. So make sure, and it's not always going to be the same thing for each one of them, and that can actually be a warning sign. If it's the same thing for each one of the partners, then obviously whoever's leading this harem or reverse harem isn't learning the people. He or she is not respecting you in the way that you need to if you are not getting the proper affirmations and the proper, you know, mutual respect and understanding from that partner. Whether you are in a singular couple or in a polyamorous or polygamous situation is irrelevant. If you are not getting those positive reaffirmations that you need, then you really need to have a discussion with the partner, and if that doesn't go anywhere, then maybe it's time to find a new partner. Not to tell you just to run off, but you really have to know that you're in a safe, comfortable environment, that they're looking out for you, because you are putting yourself at risk. Which brings me to my second warning. Always play safe. Now, I mean, if you are with someone for a long time and you know the relationship is solid and you are trying to have kids, or you are totally comfortable with the situation, knowing all of the husbands or wives are clean and safe and they're not going elsewhere, which, I mean, this is where it gets tricky and difficult, because when you have multiple partners, are they going to go elsewhere for even emotional satisfaction, which can which can turn physical rather quickly. You really want to be cautious of your own safety. No matter what, you still need to come first. I know that we're taught that we're supposed to just throw ourselves on a bullet for the people that we love, but really, if we die, we can't protect our friends. So always be sure that you are protecting yourself, that you are taking precautions for yourself. And if your partners are not respectful of that, then that could actually be a sign of abuse, because they are not taking the precautions to protect you. So they are in fact neglecting your needs and putting you in danger. So you really want to be careful that you know you are in a safe, loving environment, that they're looking out for you. The other thing that I really, really want to get into is to be aware that these are not kinks. These are not anything that is just go with the flow on a Saturday night and then go back home to something different on Monday morning. It doesn't work that way. The other thing I want to say, and there will be a description below of the full bite chart explaining what cults are. The only reason I'm bringing this up is because of what I mentioned earlier with the religious practice aspects of polygamy especially. There have been a lot, and I mean a lot, of cases of people manipulating religion to create a cult, worshiping themselves, dragging down unsuspecting people with them. And it can be a slippery slope, which is where I want to make these videos. I want to throw these warning signs out there, because there is nothing wrong. If that's the lifestyle you want, go for it. But be aware of what cultists look like. Be aware of what a cult looks like and how manipulation can look like love. And somewhere up here and in the end, I'm going to, or in the end, whichever way the end screen wants to come, I am going to put my warning signs, because I did do a general sexual warning signs. Not just is he hitting you and slapping you and calling you names, but a genuine what does sexual manipulation look like. So I really recommend, if you are in one of these situations or you feel like you might be in a dangerous situation, check out my warning videos, check out below at the bite charts, because it literally explains what defines a cult and if you are being brainwashed as if you were in one, though you thought you were in a polygamous relationship. So really be cautious of that. People will manipulate you. And again, with the polygamy and the religious background, if you are highly religious and you do want to go down this life path, all the power to you. But please, please look out for yourself. Please be careful, because as it says in the Bible, and I'm not sure if it says it in all the other books, I haven't read them all to know the exact translations of the Quran and the Torah, but I've read the Bible a few times, and there is a line I absolutely adore, which is the devil can quote the scripture better than any priest or any holy man. I can't remember if it's priest or holy man. I think it's holy man. But either way, it literally states that, because people will use religion against you. And you see it all the time in propagated media, where people will twist whatever they want into sounding like whatever they want it to be. They're using the same quotes now against homophobia, or, in props of homophobia, as they used 50 years ago in props of racism. They can twist it however they want, because anything can be twisted however they want. But the only lines that have really stuck with me was the scripture line of the devil, and that man cannot make straight what God has made crooked. So if you see something that you think is abnormal, it is not your place to switch it up. But it is our place to be vigilant in protecting ourselves. So if you just know that there is a very crooked man, and I'm not talking about anything like these right-wing propagandas are talking about in means of like, oh, it's anti-gay, anti-anything. I'm talking about, like, if they are mentally crooked, like if they just are not a straight shooter and they aren't honest people and they aren't beneficial to your life in any way, you can't change that. You can't make crooked or make straight what God made crooked. It doesn't work that way. It's up to you to get yourself away from the crooked people. And again, I'm using that in reference of like dangerous people. I'm not talking about any kind of racism or bull crap that is wrapped around that statement, because I've heard it used in the whole like, well, we use the term straight, so to be crooked must mean gay. No, they were talking about like if you are a straight shooting Christian person, or if you are straight line what society expects of you, or if you're a little crooked from what society expects of you. But I like to think of it in the dangerous ways. So if you are straight and honest and true, like true to yourself and true to the people around you, then you are a straight shooter. If you are manipulating people and being evil about everything you do and just worrying about yourself in selfish ways, and I try to use the term evil philosophically, like if you're only thinking about yourself and only thinking about your own needs, then you are philosophically evil. If you are thinking of others' needs, then you are philosophically good. No religion required there. But it's that fact that if you are dealing with someone who is not looking out for you and is not concerned about your well-being, then you might be dealing with an abuser. You might be dealing with a situation that you need to get yourself out of. So down below will be the bite chart reference, link, something, and there will also be a link to the national helpline. So it will be there. If you need to get out of a situation safely, that is the resource to find. It will at least guide you in the right direction to a local resource that you can find in your city or your area. But yeah, so please be cautious of that. But I don't want to end that on this horrible note of it has to be cultist. I do want to say it can be completely beneficial. If you are someone who is polyamorous or is polygamous, then please do not think I am judging you. I don't think anyone has the right to judge you. You are who you are, and you should rock whoever you are, babe. Whatever you do, be you. But please always be vigilant for yourself. Always be careful. And I don't even just mean I mean like every ways. Like, sex can be dangerous no matter what. Take precautions and protect your mind. Make sure that you're always with people that make you feel safe and comfortable. And with that, I'm going to say good night, everybody. Send your love to all. I send my love to you. Like and subscribe below if you want to support me, and there will be another video out next Tuesday around 10 o'clock. So, have a good night, guys.